Welcome to RealtyCast Global, where we bring insights and advice from top professionals in the global market. Join us for a journey of culture and real estate from countries across the globe. I'd like to introduce my guest today, Christian Assal with Currencies Direct. And our program is going to be about purchasing properties in foreign countries and the exchange rate between the country's currency and your own currency, and how that can greatly impact the entire amount of money that you're spending. And Christian, it's good to have you today, and I hope we can clear up some of these things um, about the exchange rates and how that affects the individual investor. And I know that you're with a great company, and if you would first tell us a little bit about your company, and then we'll get into some of the issues that we may be facing when we do make those investments overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. So, Currencies Direct, we're a foreign exchange and international transfer company. Our whole spiel is we undercut banks, provide far better rates of exchange for clients, just to make sure their dollars or whatever their end currency is going to be if they're buying abroad is going to be maximized, as the banks typically have rather high margins that they take on currencies as well as transfer fees, wire fees, all these different fees included with the margin. It's not your friend. So companies like ours that stray away from the brick and mortar style banks platform, we were brought out of need of the industry just because there's so much money not being accounted for. We can save clients tens of thousands of dollars in some cases on just the transfer with no additional steps or anything of the sort, and faster delivery times. So we'll definitely be able to talk more about it, get in detail with some of these questions going on. So
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. And I think it's going to be very insightful to understand that element of a transaction, because it's truly a major part of the transaction. Christian, today, how does the current global economic climate impact foreign exchange markets? And what factors should the investor consider when making currency trades?
Oh, absolutely, very good question. So I mean, there's multiple factors that are going on. We have the changes in interest rates, banks' policies, certain economic data that can really go ahead and change what's going on in the market. With some countries having strengthening dollars, pounds, euros, some other countries could be really weakening. So it's important to find the resistance lines, the support lines, just kind of know what you're looking at for the future, where your trade is going to go. Economic growth is a major contributor to the global economic climate. Geopolitical events, there's a number of these things that can really determine where the rate's going to be moving in the short term as well as the long term. The factors that investors should use when considering currency trades, it's going to be your economic indicators such as GDP, inflation, employment data, just to name a few. We have political developments such as geopolitical risk, some big words that once you Google them, you could really kind of get a look into what they mean, as well as how they can affect it. Because there is some research that would be good to be involved with, as well as having people just kind of to advise you on what's going on as well. If you're busy, if it's not your market, having a friendly hand just to help you with the decisions and timing, it's a very crucial role. Um, yeah, I hope that kind of covers it.
Well, it does, and what it tells me is, it's a critical situation there to have an expert involved in that transaction, so that you know moment by moment what's happening. Because I mean, I don't think I could do all the research necessary to figure it out. So we need a professional there helping, push us in the right direction and save the money. Because I heard you say tens of thousands of dollars could be spent.
Absolutely, it's a very realistic possibility. We could really, with some banks, they all have different kind of margins that they're looking to place on transfers because they're just so well known. It's the first place you'd think to make these transfers. that when we can save a client 3, 4, maybe even 5% on their overall transfer, when you're looking at property, it's not hard to believe on the transfer of about $1 million for a property. It's a very realistic thing. It happens every day, especially internationally, that if we're able to save you 5% on $1 million transfer, you're looking at saving about $50,000. So it can really stack up to be quite a massive amount. My easy way of kind of talking about it is we can end up getting you the property, your dream home, your property, as well as the jet ski at the same time, maybe even a couple. So it adds quite the excitement.
That's great, and I like the way you put that. You can have a little pleasure left over at the end of this transaction, money to buy pleasurable items with. Um, okay, with the rise of the cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, how do you see the future of the foreign exchange market evolving, and what impact do you think this will have on the traditional currencies?
Yeah, so that's definitely a two-parter. I'll try and answer both of them the best I can. I mean, with the rise of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, it's creating new opportunities every day for investors, for people looking for cross-border solutions. It really can provide some precision, some clarity, take away some of the costs that are incurred with doing these transfers, as well as it is creating challenges in the market as well, especially the FX market. It's definitely coming to be competition. Um, Cryptocurrency, I'm not an expert in that. Our company, we specialize in fiat currency. I don't see any appetite for us to start moving towards crypto, but I do have a little bit of knowledge towards it. Cryptocurrency, it's a very good tool if you can make it work, if you have the research and the knowledge on it. You can get faster and cheaper cross-border payments, which is massive. It is a massive benefit to clients. There's greater transparency and security in transactions. Blockchain technology is a very good technology, whereas rather than have a ledger of different transactions going through, they it's about the same, but these transactions tend to stack on one another. So once your transaction's gone through, then it stays cemented because everything layers on top of it. So there's no way to really adjust anything once it's done. Everything is very crystal clear. I believe blockchain technology has a lot of integration that will be done in the next 10 years, especially just because it is such a transparent, a good, very well-rounded system. So that one, I think there would be more integration as opposed to cryptocurrency as a whole. It'll be a lot quicker. There's just the rise of crypto as well as blockchain technology. It's increasing access to global markets for individuals and businesses. Companies like ours, we're very good at what we can do. We specialize in about 42 different currencies all over the world. We've got some of the safe haven currencies. We've got some exotics, but really there are going to be some countries we can't help, and that's due to financial regulations. We do have regulators that we have to appease at all times, and we can't go outside of our role. So with countries that are typically a little more difficult, such as some of the South American ones, I don't want to name any, but it really gives them access to move their money at a reasonable price with efficiency. It doesn't take forever either. So it's a very good tool for the future. The impact I think it'll have on traditional currencies, there's going to be some volatility and price fluctuations coming in the crypto markets. I'm sure we've all seen that in the past year, 2 years. With the rise and fall of Bitcoin at the moment, it looks like it's starting to gain some traction again, but the FTX collapse, it didn't do any help towards it. Regulatory uncertainties, excuse me, and potential government interventions. There's going to need to be some regulations placed on these. You can't just have people moving millions of dollars with the idea of cryptocurrency. There's no way to really track it. There's no proof of funds. There's nothing to really establish why this money is moved and where it's going. It's really just up to the sender and receiver that are in the know-how of that. So it does present a major risk, such as security and fraud risk. It's a decentralized system, so there's going to be some kind of move towards regulation, I'm sure, before it really starts getting uh, brought mainstream by large corporations, companies, governments. They need to be able to see what's going on just for safety's sake, just to make sure there's no uncertain activity and fraudulent activity that could present a danger to the everyday consumer and citizens of their country, as well as the people that hold the store of their currency and whatever fiat currency they're looking to do.
That's great. I
So,
appreciate your answer. I mean, it seems like you've, even though you said you didn't know that much about the crypto market, but you've definitely, um, you have a very conservative approach there at your company, and I appreciate that. Um, let's jump on to another topic. I think you mentioned at the very beginning maybe politics or geopolitical events such as elections. What about trade deals and other international agreements um, impacting the foreign exchange market? And what strategy, excuse me, what strategies do you manage? Do you use to manage the risk of that type of environment?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's like everything, there's always multiple different aspects that are affecting what's going on in the FX market, especially. Elections are a big one, trade deals, international agreements, they all take their turn in affecting the rise and fall of different currencies and the strength they have against each other. So these types of events really create uncertainty and volatility. It leads to fluctuations in the currency exchange rate. It's really case by case to see which way it's going to go, who's benefiting out of it, what's getting stronger, what's getting weaker. One strategy I would suggest, really just to manage risk in this kind of situation, is keep your portfolios diversified. That's going to be massive. You definitely want to make sure that your portfolio is really branched out. That way, you have it in property, you have it in fiat currency, you have it in stocks, you have it everywhere, just to keep yourself buoyant if there are some uncertain times leading to issues. You don't want all your, in a sense, all your eggs in one basket. So one thing you can do is really stay informed about global news and developments that could affect the market. This is very easy to do. If you watch financial news, they're very good at keeping you up to date on really everything that's going on. A lot of them cover a lot of world markets because especially nowadays the U.S. Big businesses they tend to have hands in these different markets as well. So it really brings the American consumer eye towards them. Um, you always want to keep adjusting your trading strategies in response to changing market conditions and trends. That's going to be very big for clients. Um, yeah, I mean, if you run in the same strategy constantly, the market's not staying the same. So why would your strategy stay the same, right? So if you're up to
It's
date on what's going on, pardon me.
Yeah, I was going to say it's constantly evolving, and but I think strategically it's paying attention. It's paying attention to what's happening in that world market, and understand that you have to evolve with it as things change. I was going to ask you, we came through this pandemic with COVID-19, and it had an impact on global trade and economics. And during that time, what were we faced with the foreign exchange market at that time?
Yeah, so that was a very uncertain time. I mean, I still think we're dealing with the repercussions of it to this day. I mean, the inflation outlook is just it's we've seen the Fed hike up the interest rates quite a bit just to try and battle it. But changes in the interest rates and central bank policies, those were kind of some of the biggest things we've seen out of there. Um, Fluctuations in commodity prices, of course. I'm sure we all saw the price of lumber a couple of years ago when it started skyrocketing. It made really building kind of it made a lot of builders just kind of reevaluate their cost ratio. It's a very big expense change where it kind of went up 5, 10 fold of where it should have been on the price of wood. So I mean, Increased investor risk aversion is definitely going to be the move whenever there's something like a pandemic or any major world event. People that tend to have large stores of money, they're going to be moving into the safe haven currencies. It's going to be considered kind of the US dollar, pound's a good one, euro, the Japanese yen. These are all going to be the kind of big ones that people like to move their money to. There's definitely going to be more, but these are just kind of the most common that we've seen through trends.
I
Um,
see.
and then the foreign exchange market, I see it evolving in the future. It's going to rely largely on government fiscal and monetary policies to the pandemic and their impact on the global economy. Governments play a massive, massive role in what's going on with the currency market, as their currency is vital to a country. If a country's currency tanks, then it creates so many problems. It devalues so many assets. It really can turn a country on its head if they're not careful. So it always comes down to government intervention, just really making sure that none of these issues create too drastic of a fall. But regardless of one currency dropping and another one rising, if you're paying attention to what's going on globally and you're really kind of monitoring the markets, there's always room to improve your financial status off things like these, just being in the know-how.
I see. One question that comes to mind: how do you manage currency exposure when investing in the international markets? I mean, like what strategies would you use to mitigate a risk?
Yeah, I mean, like we were mentioning before, strategy is going to be everything. It's constantly evolving. One really good thing you can do is in a sense hedging your money. So you don't want, if you have a large amount of money, if you have your life savings, you don't want to move it all in one lump sum. That's gonna that's gonna be a good strategy if you're moving a good lump of money, but not your life savings. If you're moving a large amount of money, you're really trying to move, say you're moving from Portugal to the United States, a hedging strategy is going to allow you to really pinpoint multiple high points in your currency valuation and just make sure that you're kind of getting the average of them. So you pick maybe 4 or 5 different time periods where you're going to invest maybe once a month, maybe once a week, or whatever your time frame's looking like, and really just make sure you hit the highs on all of those. And that's going to really allow you to kind of get the average and make sure you're moving your money in the right direction. Um, yeah, I mean, back to what I was saying earlier as well. Um, it's going to be a diversified portfolios. That's going to be your biggest friend. Having all your eggs in one basket is the same as doing all of your life savings over one spot transfer. It could look good that day, but the economic outlook in the short term or versus long term, you could be missing kind of you might think you have the best time to transfer your currencies or invest, but really it could be a week later. You never know until it happens. So keep your portfolio diversified, never move everything at once.
You, Christian, you may have answered the question that I was going to ask next about common mistakes. I mean, I heard you say we need to diversify, and I keep hearing diversify the portfolio. But what are some common mistakes that investors make when trading foreign currencies?
That's a very good question. One of the biggest mistakes that we see is just people taking on too much risk for their risk appetite. Everyone has their own individual risk appetite, and you want to make sure that the levels of risk that you're taking on in investments and in currency trades and in anything is going to be up to par with what you're willing to gain or willing to lose. So you really have to have a one-on-one with yourself and know what you're personally comfortable with. You should never ever be influenced by emotions. If you have a good plan and you know what you want to get out of it, it's never going to be a straight line. There's always going to be ups and downs, but you can't change your outlook based on the hills. You got to conquer the mountains, right? So just being
True.
very adamant on what you want to do is going to be crucial. You should never go into any sort of strategy without looking at your risk appetite on it and seeing what you're willing to gain and what you're willing to lose in doing so.
Well, and
So,
you brought up, I don't mean to butt in, but you brought up a good point earlier about cryptocurrency, and so many people jumped on that wave of investing, and I'm not sure what it topped out at. What was the top number for a Bitcoin?
um, for Bitcoin, I believe it got rather, if it didn't breach 70,000, it was definitely right there. It might have gone a little bit over from what I've seen. I don't typically play too much in the crypto markets. It's very volatile. There's not, in my opinion, I could be very wrong here, but I just don't see a lot of rhyme or reason to why the ups and downs are performing. There's no way to kind of indicate the future. It's really
Mhm.
just based on people's interest in it. So, I mean, you're riding the wave in an instance, but there's been a couple of good years in the past where a lot of people have made a lot of money out of it. But some people that held on to it past that, they thought it was going to go to the moon per se. They're really suffering now, and they had it at 68,000 or so, and now we're down to mid 20s. It's vastly different.
Well, I think the reason I brought that up because you mentioned don't get caught up in emotions when you're making these investments. And I think that was an emotional part when it came to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin because it was everywhere, all over the news, and people got on that train. A lot of people made money, a lot of people lost. But again, it goes back to being diversified, not basing opinions on emotion, but data that you can seek out. I mean, you're talking about geopolitical trading with other countries, things like that that we talked about earlier. But as we look a little bit further into this, how important is it to stay up on current events? I mean, that's key to being part of your strategy because you have to know what's going on so that you don't make a mistake in this market.
Absolutely. First, I do want to correct myself. I pulled it up. Bitcoin's a little lower than the mid 20s at the moment, but it just furthers the
Okay.
point. There, you need to have exit strategies. It's going to be very crucial to trading in any currency. Is not just know where you're going to pull out if things go well, but where your stop loss is going to be on regardless of if it's currency trading, FX trading, crypto trading, or even just property. I'm sure you know as well as anyone, you have to have your bottom line. So I did just want to add that on the previous question, but um, when it comes to staying up to date with current events, it's you you really want to make sure that you have an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood of what you're looking to do. Um, you can reference this towards property. You're going to look at the neighborhood before you buy the house, right? You really want to
True.
know what's surrounding your investment. This is no small amount of money that people like to play in, and to not know what's going on in the world that you're dealing with, it's like running with blinders on. So you want to make sure that you are watching central bank policy decisions, interest rate changes, economic data releases, political developments, geopolitical tensions. You just need to know what's going on in the world before you start playing in the world's currencies and the world's investment. You need to know. So
We are getting close to the end of our time, but excuse me, with this episode. But I wanted to ask you, how do you see, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but how do you see the future of foreign exchange evolving um, and opportunities for investors in the coming years?
Um, I see very good things, honestly. I have a very bullish outlook on what's going to be happening in the next 5, 10 years. I mean, I think obviously we all know we're going to see continued growth in online trading platforms with technology coming out the way it is, such as ChatGPT, all these different developments that are coming out. It's only going to give the individual more insight into what's going on in the market. We're going to see more mobile apps. It's going to improve the convenience and it's going to push people away from typical brick and mortar institutions. So it's going to be very cool to see that the individual has a lot more transparency, a lot more guidance on what's going on, and the ease of access in doing it because you can really do anything from your mobile phone nowadays. It makes life very easy. I think in the future, like I said at the beginning, we're going to see more integration of blockchain technology. I don't get why anyone would even think to disagree with that. It's such a sound uh, system that it to me that's one of the biggest takeaways from crypto at the moment was the innovation of blockchain technology. I know they were a big supporter of it. A lot of these currencies are backed on it. So I think that was a massive short-term win from the currencies. I don't see myself exactly how they're gonna start playing into the everyday consumer's life. I know they're trying to find ways, but I just don't think we've found its real niche yet. I'm sure it does have a purpose. You're going to get the emergence of new trading instruments and security measures. Um, like I said, it's going to keep bringing individuals more knowledge, more advisement, more credible ways to enter markets. Really creates the emergence of that. Um, Security measures, of course, security is going to be it's going to be very big in the future with technology growing. Of course, security needs to do the same because, like I previously said, everything can be done from your phone, no matter what you're talking about. So whether it's trying to make investments or people's trying to piggyback off what you're doing, it's all through the phone. So security is going to be a tech security. I mean, is going to be a very big aspect in the future. Um, for for crypto specifically, I see a greater importance is going to be placed on regulatory compliance. It's the same with our industry. Regulation, it takes the volatility out of the market. So a lot of individuals like to stay away from regulation in a sense because it allows them, bigger gains, bigger losses. Some people like to play the high stakes, but for it to really be adopted into the mainstream, you're really gonna need uh, you're gonna need some more compliance on it. You're gonna need people watching and making sure that the top half aren't outweighing the bottom half, right? You don't want the few getting masses and the many uh getting the wrong end of the stick on that one. So you need people looking out for the everyday individual.
Christian, thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate all the knowledge that you gave us, and your name and direct information will be at the bottom in the episode description of this podcast. We appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for everything that you brought forth this morning. Valuable information that we need to know. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. If you have any questions in the future, anyone watching the podcast, my information, I'm very easy to reach. I'd love to answer any questions, solve
Okay,
any issues, or anything of the sort.
that's great. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining in on today's episode of RealtyCast Global. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to be notified when new episodes air.